And with 5 minutes to spare. Next we've got Trek Metals, which is led by members of the same management team that established ASX 100 lithium producer Pilbara Minerals. Trek is exploring in the Pilbara for battery metals. To tell us more, please welcome Trek CEO Derek Marshall.
Thank you very much, Christy. It's a pleasure to be here to tell you about Trek Metals. We are a battery metals focused mineral explorer. Standard disclaimer. So why Trek Metals? As Christy pointed out, the board at Trek is the same board that were the founding members of Pilbara Minerals, which is now, ASX 100 plus $7 billion company. They transformed that from a junior explorer. They've got deep experience in the battery metal market, and it's really their faith in the battery metal market that it will continue, that has put us on our path where we are today. We're battery metal focused, especially looking at the nickel, cobalt, manganese style of lithium ion batteries. We're strategically located. Our projects are all in Western Australia, with a focus in the Pilbara region, and there's no better place in the world to start a mine than the Pilbara, or in Western Australia, which was most recently voted as #1 jurisdiction globally. I think we're leveraged to the decarbonisation and electrification of the world. I don't think I need to go into that much because it's an overarching thematic that I don't think is going to go away. The demand that we need for all these minerals, which I'll go into, is just going to continue. If everyone's serious about climate change, which I think they are, there's you can see the Labor government has been voted in Australia. You've got all the voters, especially the young people, really pushing this agenda. So we're looking to capitalise on that. So starting with a bit of a history photo here is the team from Pilbara Minerals sourcing an offtake agreement for lithium back in 2015 in China, and they were really, pioneers of the lithium industry. They foresaw what was going to happen in the lithium-ion space, and their belief is that we're going to see the same thing play out. We're already seeing it play out in nickel, cobalt, and manganese, especially. Our ASX ticker is TKM. We're very much junior. We have a small market capitalisation, and which provides a lot of upside that, if you're an early investor and we come through with the goods on any one of our projects, there's significant gains to be made there. Okay, so battery metals focus. Why are we focusing on battery metals? The graph on the left there is just the projected requirement for the metals that go into lithium-ion batteries, and why NCM, the two pie charts, 2019 through to projected 2023, is that you can see the big white section is that the NCM batteries are gaining market share, and that's all about range anxiety, if you will, because the lithium-ion batteries, the biggest thing that people were worried about was the chargeability. How many kilometres am I going to get out of my car? Am I going to run out of juice? And that's why the EV industry is moving towards nickel-rich batteries. But to pair with the nickel, you need to put in manganese, otherwise you can get thermal runaway. So to have higher energy densities where your cars can go further, you need to marry it with manganese. And there's issues around cobalt with high prices, and also with some social issues with where most of that's sourced. The large car manufacturers like Tesla and Volkswagen are looking to phase out cobalt and increase the manganese content. Additionally, with our battery metals focus, we're aiming to move up the chain by participating in downstream processing. So there's a huge push by the Australian government, both at the federal and state levels, to really value add. Like historically, Australia has been a mass exporter of raw materials, but there's a real push now to see if we can't add to that value chain rather than just exporting raw materials. you can see BHP Nickel West have started producing nickel sulphate. Tianqi with IGO have started producing lithium hydroxide. You've got, all the big players in the battery metal space that are looking at making these precursor materials which go into the cathode of the lithium-ion batteries and try and kind of capture some of it's a much valuable, much more valuable product. And if we can capture some of that in Australia, we'd like to try and do the same. Big ambitions, right? So I'm pleased to announce today, we put an announcement yesterday that we signed a binding scheme of arrangement with Edge Minerals to acquire an advanced manganese project in the Pilbara region of Western Australia, so it fits geographically with what Trek's doing, and it fits in the battery metal space as well. And I believe that manganese is the forgotten battery mineral. The project has an inferred resource of 11.3 million tonnes at 15% manganese, and importantly there was work done by Spitfire back in the day. This project hasn't had any work done on it in the last decade, but 15 years ago when Spitfire drilled this resource, they did some preliminary metallurgical studies which showed that you could upgrade the material to plus 40% manganese con, which is good for direct ship. So you can dig this out, upgrade it on site and direct ship it. But we want to go that extra step and see if we can get manganese sulphate. It's over 1.6 kilometres, it's sticking out of the ground. It's granted tenure, land access agreements in place. So the upside, it's a hydrothermal style of manganese deposit, which is very similar to Woody Woody, which historically has very high grades, and it upgrades very well, and is a premium product to the market, and they get paid accordingly. It forms along fault zones, and typically the thickest, highest grade mineralisation is right in the core of the deposit. And if you look at that cross section there, the depression in the middle, they drilled with reverse circulation, which is an air drill, and they had too much water and they weren't able to get to target depth. And so I've got a plan to hold there on an angle in blue. That one is to try and test the centre of the resource, where I think there's significant potential for thicker, higher grades of mineralisation. The resource also isn't closed off with a lot of the drilling of the wireframing coming right up to the edge of the drilling, so there's quite a bit of scope there. There's a large tenement package that goes with it, 448 square kilometres. There's some great targets on there, IP. There's some wide space drilling that came back with some great results. So typically these hydrothermal manganese things don't occur just on their own. So some great upside there, and the vertical integration of we'll get some metallurgical samples, and we've got a world expert in manganese that's going to look to optimise our flow sheet to make manganese sulphate, to try and do that value add. We've also got Tambura, which is also in the Pilbara. It's an early stage, green fields, never been drilled, lithium prospect. FMG did a bunch of work there and defined some stream sediment anomalism, where you've got lithium, cesium, rubidium, all the pathfinders of an LCT enriched pegmatite system. We're very similar to what Pilgangoora is, just down the road, only 60 kilometres from this project. There's pegmatites everywhere. We just had the geo down there breaking off rock chips, and so we submitted them to the lab to see what we get. To find some drill targets is the next step there. Jimblebar, just near Newman, again in the Pilbara. We've got a nickel, copper, cobalt sulphide target. There's known nickel, copper sulphide along strike. And then there's an off-hole conductor, 3,000 Siemens, really conductive, in the same horizon, and it was never drill tested. So that's a bit of a no-brainer. We've got a heritage survey booked in there next month. Good relationship with the pastoralist. Go and drill that one. And Pinkuna project, which includes Valley of the Gossans VMS discovery that Trek made last year. We've had the field crew out there for the best part of the last 2-3 months collecting soil samples over a range of EM targets. We flew EM at the end of last year to find all these targets, following up on all those. You've got Sulphur Springs develop is just on the far right of that image, and we think we've got the same belt of rocks that come round and historically hasn't been recognised for the VMS potential. So we're following up on a bunch of targets there, especially Conductor A, which is on that image on the left on the top, is a conductive target that was defined in the EM survey, and it's got coincident zinc and copper and a bit of bismuth, antimony, in the soils directly above it. So that's a drill target ready to go. We've got a heritage survey booked in for there as well, and we're trying to squeeze what we can out of the data from the first pass drilling that we did over Valley of the Gothans last year. We're reassaying a bunch of the pulps to look at the lithogeochemistry and try and really use geochemistry to vector us in towards some deeper drilling there. Because we've got proof of process there. There's over 2 kilometres of mineralisation. We got mineralisation in every single hole we drilled in the preliminary RC drill program last year, but we really need to find a focal point where you might get that economic accumulation. We're sort of on the cusp there. So just to reiterate, why Trek? We're an early stage mineral explorer, aspiring developer, downstream processor. We've got a team that's proven to deliver in the mineral space, specifically the battery metal space in Western Australia. We're battery metal focused. We have a number of projects strategically located in WA, and we're leveraged to the decarbonisation and electrification trends going on globally. And so get in early. Come and have a chat at the booth if you've got any more questions about our projects or what we're doing, and thanks for listening.
Thanks,